Hello everyone, this is Bytesauce and welcome to episode 27 of Feed the Beast Unleash. And last episode I left you with the room design, my little entrance system, and I also got this up and running, so each one has all its stuff in it, there we go, and it was filtering into the recycler. So this episode I want to basically complete the build. I want to get the reactor running, I want it to be creating UU matter and sustaining itself and all that stuff. So the first thing I want to do is lay down a applied logistics system to store any items that we create. So I've got all my items on me. I've got an access terminal, a storage unit, a ME drive, a controller, and some cables. Now I might need some more of the cables, but we'll find out soon. The first thing I want to do is place my access terminal inside here. Now this shouldn't be accessed by the router because it's not technically an inventory, it's just a thing. But we need to hook up the rest of the stuff for it to actually work. So I'm going to run a cable down here, all the way along here, and here I'm going to place a controller, and I'm also going to place my drive and then put my storage disk inside. So the first thing I wanted to do is supply power to my recycler, and the reason I want that is because I need to produce scrap to tell all the different things what to actually do, because I need to supply my mass fabricator, which I placed here, with scrap, so it will produce things faster. Now this cable currently runs all the way along here, comes off the back and comes to this point. So I'll hook this up once I've told you about the reactor and what I'm doing, and then I can explain the rest. But for now I've got a MFS chute, which if I place this way, this will get charged from the cable coming from the reactor, and the power will also go straight into the mass fabricator. And then all I need to do is run a cable from here to the recycler, so I'm going to do that. So I've got the wire going all the way around. It also hooks into the bottom of the ME controller, which means the applied logistics system will get power as well. Now, before I actually give it power, I want to add some transformer upgrades, and I've got energy storage. I also need to add about 10 overclocker upgrades in the end, but I will get them later. And to jumpstart it, I've made myself a Lapidron crystal and charged it off my other MFSU. So throw it in the bottom slot, which should gain power, and I didn't hear any explosions, so that's a good thing. I'll do. And then this way, it should start to recycle down things and create scrap. Now we can use the scrap to tell things what to do. Now we need about 9 of it so we can create scrap boxes. So I'm going to let that cook up and then I'll show you the rest of the stuff. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, I've run the cable all the way around here, and I want to tell this to have an export bus there and an import bus there. Connect the two with a cable, there you go. And I want to tell it to export scrap in stacks, and I wanted to tell it to import, which I crafted this earlier, a scrap box and stacks of items. And I've already taught the schematic that 9 scrap equals 1 scrap box, so basically it's every crafting slot filled like this is equal to 1 scrap box. So I've already taught that. Now once I throw it in like that, it should create the scrap box, get pulled out, and then stored in the ME system. And then what we want to do is tell it to send the scrap boxes into here. So there we go, added that to this, and then all we need to do then is hook it up to the system, and then hopefully scrap boxes should end up going into the bottom. So I'll put down all my components for the reactor, and as you can see I'm using LZH condensators. Now what these do is, if they're placed next to uranium cell, they will pull out any heat that it produces and basically absorb it, but it's only a single use item unless you recharge it. So once it gets destroyed, use a piece of lapis and it will recharge the thing, and then you can put it back into the reactor and it will start to eat up the heat again. So I'm going to put all these items into the reactor, not turn it on obviously, but I'm going to put it into my design and then I will show you that. So this is it. This is the beast that I created. Now this in total should create a whopping 2,400 EU per tick. That's a lot. And the reason it does this is because I'm using quad uranium cells, so that's 4 uranium cells all put next to each other. And then these are touching multiple cells. Now what happens with uranium cells is, with a single cell, if I just demonstrate with torches in my inventory, if you have one, it creates, I believe it's 10 EU per tick. and this one will create 10 EU per tick. If you had 2 in the reactor, with a space between them, they would create 20. If I was to put them together, this would create 10, this would create 10. But with them touching, I believe they create another 10 each, so this in total would create 40, I believe. Which is great for creating a lot of energy, but it's really bad because it creates a lot of heat too. And that's why I'm using LG8 condensators. Now the LG8 condensators, as I said before, if they're next to a cell, they will absorb any energy that these create, any heat, and then take damage themselves. And then you recharge them using lapis or redstone. And then I've got overclock heat vents, and I'll explain what these do in a bit and the reason they're in here. And then yeah, so all I need to do is hook it up, and I've got this adjustable transformer. So let's close the door. And this adjustable transformer, if I place it on top, you can change the inputs. So this is currently a input, and if I change that to that, you can see the design changes, and it's now an output. So all of these you can change no matter which one you want. So I want down to be an input because that's where the reactor is, underneath it, and up to be an output. All the others don't really matter. And then I can hook these up here. Then I want to change this to output to this cable's capacity, which is 512 EU. So if I just click this up, go down a bit, add some more. There we go, 512 EU. But as I said before, it creates 2,400 EU per tick. So raise that up. You can raise it higher, it doesn't really make a difference. It will just output it in a slightly different way, but I'm just going to put it exactly on 2,400. Ta-da! And then this will not destroy the cable, but will output all the energy. Now if you used to use a high voltage transformer, you would actually lose quite a lot of the energy. So that's why I've used this adjustable transformer. So I'm inside my reactor chamber, still not turned on, but I've added a thermal monitor and I've set the value to 3000, and then what it'll do is if the reactor itself goes over the value of 3000, it will create a redstone signal. Now it'll only emit the redstone signal down, so what I've done is I've attached a wireless transmitter and I've set it to the value of 300. I've also put a wireless receiver on the top and I've set that to a value of 301. So I've got this little setup here. There's a lever on a bit of rednet cable, and then it comes down, goes into this programmable rednet controller, as well as I've got a wireless receiver set to 300. So this is the thermal monitor one, so that's the one on the bottom of the reactor. And I've set this currently to 400. It would normally be on 301, which is turning the reactor on, but I don't want it to mess up and turn on when I don't want it to, so I've set it to 400 for now. And then the first function I want is if the variable 0 is on, this is an inverter, so if it's on, this is off, and if this one's off, then this one is on. So I want to set it to the right side, which is this one. So let's go to input output right and set it to white because that's the color of this bit. So this is all right. The next one is a pulse lengthener, and what I want it to do is if this pulses at any stage, then I want it to receive it. So on the input of the left side this time, on white, I want it to have a constant of 255, so that's as long as you can get it. And I want it to output onto variable 0. Actually, no I don't, variable 1. And the next one I want is a OR gate. Now you can have 2, 3 or 4, doesn't really matter. Well, not particularly anyway. And I want it to set to variable 1, which is from this one, or this here. So I'm going to change the color of this to orange, and I want to say input output on the left side as orange, and I want it to output onto, there it goes, variable 0. Now that should be matching this one, variable 0. So to explain this fully, I'm going to start at this one. So variable 0, whenever that is on, then this one is off. So currently it's off, so this is emitting to on. Now obviously, like I said, I set this to 400, so this is currently not doing anything, but that's fine. And then what actually changes variable 0 is in this one. So in total, this is the only thing that changes variable 0 when this activates or when this activates. So one of the ones is if I flick this lever. As you can see, it's gone off. So this is if this one's going off, then it will activate variable 0. Flick it back on, this is turned back on, and this is the other thing. So variable 1, which is this one here, as you can see, is when this one activates. Now what I want it to do is when the thermal monitor activates, I want it to, any length of pulse, doesn't matter what, will activate this signal and it will count down. It's around 15 seconds, I think, this or so. I'm not entirely sure, but it's a long time anyway. It's long enough. And what it will do is if this pulses at any length, it will activate this lengthener and go on to variable 1, which will set this off, and then we'll change this to an off state. So what we need to do then is change this to match reactor on, and it will control the reactor. So I can toggle it here, or if it gets too hot, this will turn it off as well. Now on to the next thing, which is what do we do when the LZH condensators have burnt up. Okay, to set up the rest of the stuff, I'm going to actually need to damage one of these until it's no longer usable. So that means it's going to have a damage value of 9,999, I believe it is. And the only way to do that is to heat it up and destroy it. So to do that, I could either take all the components back out of the reactor and then just stack 4 cells around one of them and damage one of them, or I could just let it go anyway and see what happens. So let's hope I've set everything up properly, and yeah, otherwise there might be an explosion. So there you go, turned it on. You can see all the components have become damaged. Now what I'm going to wait for is I'm going to close this door and I'm going to wait for the thermal monitor to trigger. And that way it means one of the LZH condensators has run out and the cells next to it are starting to generate heat, and they've heated up the whole to trigger the stop. Now hopefully this will shut it off, otherwise yeah, there might be a bit of a bang. So I'm going to wait for that to happen, and I'm going to keep recording just in case it goes bang, and then I can get the component that I need. So I'll be back in a bit. Okay, there we go. We've got all the LZH condensators. Well, these 3 are now at durability of 1 of 10,000. So we can take these out and we can use them. I've turned the reactor off, so there's no longer generating heat. And the only reason I actually realized they were on is because these started taking damage. What these do is, because there's going to be a duration where there are going to be LZH condensators that are either broken or not even in the reactor at all, these are going to take out any excess heat on the hull and emit it. Now the thing is if you leave these in for too long, heating up or removing heat, is they will actually destroy themselves. Because what they do is, because they're overclocked, they will remove more heat than they can output. So say they remove 100 units of heat, they will only output 80 of it. And that way it will take damage and eventually become destroyed. And that's, I don't actually want these to be destroyed. So I want to replace these as fast as I can. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. So this cyclic assembler over here, I've taught it that to get an LZH condensator, it uses an LZH condensator and a piece of lapis. And what that does is if I put it in here and here, as you can see, if it uses this, it will get back one with more durability. Now if we tell the export bus to export broken LZH condensators, it doesn't really matter if it moves stacks or not. Let's see, move singles. And I want to tell it to split damage at 50%. So anything below 50%, it's going to put back in. So basically anything up to 5,000 basically, and 5,000 durability, it's going to export into here. Now I want it to pull out anything. So if I put this at 75, I need to grab a LZH condensator. So let's grab this one and throw it in here. And this will import any good LZH condensators. Now as you can see, there's this white marker here, and the reason for that is because I want to keep this stocked with lapis. And the only way I've managed to figure out how to keep it filled with lapis is using a clay golem worker. Now the reason, there is a few tricks to this, and basically if I tell this to keep exported 64 of this, it will eventually export it. So if I was to go over here and throw this into here, it will instantly export it into here. Now, I need to grab some more lappers, so back in a sec. So I've thrown in just under 400 lappers into the ME system, so that will keep this stocked while I mess about with it. And what I want to do is I want to click this column onto here. It's a clay column, bit of a dodgy interface. I want to tell it to keep stocked 80 lappers and it to use the white one. So as you can see, it'll go over here and fill this up. Now this is the problem I had, is it fills up the export. Now no matter what you do with where you click the column or what you set the size to, it will always fill up this spot, except if you do that. And as you can see, it will put it into here instead, and it won't bother with the slot. So the reason I've told it to keep 64 stocked is because I never want it to run out and end up making the golem putting it into here. Now it shouldn't ever run out that fast because there isn't that many condensators. So this is a simple solution to stopping it putting it into here. Good golem. I actually forgot to turn off my mass fab when I turned my reactor on, so I've got 4 UU matter. How lucky am I? Now the last thing I want to do is I want to be able to keep lapis in my system. So I want to tell it that in this shape, this pattern creates lapis. So set that, and it says for UU matter will create a piece of lapis, or 9 pieces of lapis, or whatever it is. And that way I can import it and export this stuff, UU matter, and import lapis. I don't really have any on me. Let's grab some here. Import any lapis. Don't forget to set it to stack mode. That way it'll import it as fast as it can. I also need something else, so let me grab that. Okay, to stop it using up all my lapis, all my UU matter, I've got a level emitter, and I want to tell it to emit a redstone signal when, say, 512 lapis. I don't really need that much actually, 256. There we go. So it will emit a redstone signal if there's 256 lapis in the system. Now, I need to actually hook this up, so I've got a cable here, and then across here, as you can see, it's lit up because there's about 400 in the system currently. So that will stop this exporting if I set this to activate without signal, so this one. So this will basically export unless there's a signal going to it, which is when this says it's got too much stuff, and that will keep a supply of lapis going. Final thing I forgot to do, back on my recycler, I want to put on a import bus. I wanted to import the scrap, so tell it to import scrap, change it to stack mode, and that way this should start filling up with scrap, but it won't because it'll export it straight into here, create scrap boxes, and export the scrap boxes into my mass fab. So there we go, I've got 6 scrap boxes already in there. Now, I think that's everything, but I'm going to check because I don't want this thing to explode on me. That's not something I want to happen. So I'm going to cover up all of this stuff, I'm going to check everything's done, and I'll come back. I forgot maybe the most important part of this, which is I actually need to extract these from the reactor themselves. So I've set up a precision import bus and a fuzzy export bus. And I want to tell the precision import bus to pull out LZH condensators with a durability of 1. Now this will check that the item ID is exactly the same, so I've set that up. And then this one, I want to tell it to export, so there's the 75 LZH condensators with full durability. Okay, everything's ready. Gonna turn it on, and the reactor should be running. Now I've grabbed a EU reader so you can see how much it's actually producing. So I'm gonna start a new measurement, and there we go, 2,391 EU per tick. So that's just lower than 2,400. That is a lot of power. Now if we go over here, you'll see with scrap boxes, look how fast this is creating UU. Look, and there's another piece. There we go. So we've started generating UU matter already, really fast. Now the thing is I'm going to have to add more recyclers to this wall and more recyclers to this, ignition extruders into both of these walls, because this won't keep up. Now it's currently keeping up just because it's had some time to generate, but as you can see the numbers are going down, so I'm going to have to create 2 more walls of ignition extruders, but I'm not going to do that on camera. That's not need to be seen. But that's my system for creating UU matter using 2,400 EU per tick. So thanks for watching episode 27 of Feed the Beast Unleashed. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and I will see you later.